Eminem sold more albums in the United States than any artist across all genres of music in 2018, but outside the United States, Kamikaze stomped other hip-hop albums to the ground. But what does this mean in the grand scheme of things? Hello again, and today we'll be discussing why touring outside the United States is looking more lucrative than ever for Eminem based on Revival and Kamikaze's performance outside the United States. And as you'd expect from the channel, all this will be based on facts. As always, before we get started, remember to subscribe and turn on notifications. While the US media journalists thought Eminem was done because Revival opened with first week sales of 267,000 equivalent album units sold, which still ended up as the third best hip-hop opening of the year, outside the United States, Eminem's Revival added first week sales of 335,000 equivalent album units sold, bringing its first week totals to 602,000 equivalent album units sold globally in its first week. This marked the first time in Eminem's career that he sold more albums outside the United States in its first week of release. By January 2018, and remember, Revival released in December 2017, the album had sold actual pure copies of 1.1 million worldwide based on IFPI figures. And this made Revival the second best-selling hip-hop album of 2017 despite just releasing in December. In the United States, however, sales were still under 300,000 pure copies sold. Kamikaze released late August in 2018, but performed better in the United States this time around. But guess what? 4 months later after release, US sales and outside the US now stand at nearly a 50-50 split of sales. According to SoundScan figures, Kamikaze is around 1.1 million equivalent albums sold in the United States. And based on worldwide figures compiled by Media Traffic, deducing US sales from Kamikaze worldwide figures show that the album sold an estimated 999,000 equivalent album units outside the United States at the end of 2018. Year-end music reports bring more accurate data to light, and many hip-hop albums actually performed worse than they were initially estimated to have performed. For comparison, Post Malone's Tony, based on SoundScan figures, sold 1,388,000 equivalent album units in 2018, and sales outside the US came in at 576,000 equivalent units sold. Culture 2 by Migos sold 1,599,000 equivalent album units in 2018, and sales outside the US came in at 263,000 equivalent units sold. Astroworld by Travis Scott sold 1,985,000 equivalent album units in the United States, and sales outside the US came in at 426,000 equivalent album units sold. Invasion of Privacy sold 2,060,000 equivalent album units in the United States, and in the rest of the world sold 167,000 equivalent album units. Post Malone's Beer Bongs and Bentleys sold 3,251,000 equivalent album units in the United States, and outside the United States sold 739,000 equivalent album units, and in previous reports we believed this performed better outside the United States. Drake's double album, Scorpion, sold 3,905,000 equivalent album units in the United States, and outside the United States sold 363,000 equivalent album units, and previous reports also led us to believe it performed slightly better outside the United States, but no, it didn't. While Drake is unable to sell up to 10% of his total album sales outside the United States, Eminem is already at a million equivalent album units sold outside the United States. Revival, that released in December 2017, is also around 1.2 million equivalent album units sold outside the United States. Now, even Eminem's past albums in the long run end up selling more outside the United States, while with his more recent projects, it's happening a lot sooner, and with the case of Revival, its sales outside the United States were higher than US sales from the get-go. So does this mean fans living outside the United States should expect to get a chance to see Eminem more often now, since hip-hop is increasing in global popularity, and he remains heads and shoulders above the biggest hip-hop artists in the United States even based on equivalent sales, which is really just a popularity metric. Leave your thoughts on this in the comment section below, and I could imagine Eminem breaking attendance records if he tours countries like India or Nigeria in the near future. Thanks for watching, and remember to subscribe if you haven't and turn on notifications.
Newsflash M. I've been better than you this entire fucking decade.